and welcome to another episode of 5 Questions in 5 Minutes. My guest today has affected your life, whether you know it or not. If you've travelled to London, he is Director of London Underground Customer Operations from Transport for London. But before that, he was Director of Line Operations for London Underground, General Manager of the Metropolitan Line, Heathrow's Programme Controls and Performance Director, Heathrow's Programme Leader for Terminals and Passenger Experience, Heathrow Terminal 5 Head of Operations, Virgin Trains Business Manager, i.e., if you have travelled, Nick has affected your life. Nick, I'm going to dive straight in with question 1. We've got 5 minutes, 5 questions, and question 1. In your work, you've covered the air, Heathrow, you've covered the ground, Virgin Trains, you've covered the underground with London Underground. I'm just wondering if they present different problems to manage and deal with, or whether they throw up the same sorts of issues.
Well, there are differences, of course. I suppose some obvious differences, but in most part, there are so many similarities, so many parallels. So, safety is so important across all of them. Projects, providing that service, of course, but also I think just the impact that a good travel experience or a poor travel experience can have on individuals, on communities, on people's lives. So many stakeholders, all with so many different priorities, sometimes conflicting. And I think everybody has a view, whether they use the service or not. Everybody has a view, in my experience.
Is your skill set transferable? I mean, could you, sorry, this is a subsidiary to question 1, but could you end up working for, Roundtrees in York or something with that same skill set? Or is it are you transport?
Well, this is, I have lots of technical experts around me, but, my job is really about customers. And these are all people organizations. And I like to think that is absolutely a transferable skill. And, I have looked at other sectors in the past, but there is something about the real purpose of transport for me, the impact that it has, as I said, on people's lives, on communities, on economic, social growth. Just the real difference it can make is just really, really energizes me.
What was the first album you ever bought, and do you still own it?
Well, this is aging me. So, I grew up in the 80s. So the first album that I bought was Prince Charming by Adam and the Ants. I do own it. You'll remember the outrageous costumes. I've still got it. Outrageous songs, even more outrageous costumes. I have nothing to play it on anymore. So I need to get a proper. They're coming back in, aren't they? Vinyls. So,
Yeah, you can lend it to me. I've got a record player. Prince Charming.
That's the one.
I remember it well. Yeah. What role does market research play, if any, in Transport for London, TfL?
Well, a huge role. And I think, in any customer service business, but particularly one like ours, it serves as well to be really curious about, what customers need, how their expectations are changing. And I found it particularly valuable over the last few years, actually. So many things changed through the pandemic in terms of people's expectations, their concerns, the level of service. But also so many things hadn't. And, we use a lot of market research actually into people's view, just very tactically, of journeys that they've just taken, their thoughts around every aspect of that experience. But, their overall impression of our organization. And, one of the most important questions we ask through that research is whether, Londoners more generally, but also people who use our service, think that we care about them. And that is a sentiment piece of research, but it's one that's particularly important to us.
So if this isn't a naive question, but or maybe it is, but in what way do they sense that you care about them?
Well, often, obviously their own experience, but how we, as a whole organisation, TfL is first and foremost, a transport organisation, but we own large parts of the state in London. We develop housing. We have commercial development. So how we behave in terms of treat them look after customers and their journeys, and particularly when journeys have gone wrong for whatever reason, sometimes they do, how we've looked after people during disruption, but also just our reputation around London. London is nothing without its transport network, and how people feel that we fulfill that important responsibility is, it is an important thing to us as an organization.
And are you essentially kind of grabbing them live in person, or are you sending them quantitative surveys afterwards, or both?
Both. I
Yeah.
mean, we do have people, will maybe approach you sometime after you've taken a journey with a clipboard and ask questions about, various aspects of your experience that you've just had. But the research around, whether people believe that TfL and different parts of TfL care about its customers. We also look in the different modes, the underground, the bus, all quite different. That's taken place through various channels of research.
Yeah. And again, please don't answer this question if it's revealing anything you shouldn't. But we work a lot, for instance, with the BBC and the level of satisfaction that their viewers have with the organization. And obviously, the BBC is a very popular organization, but it is over time, I think, fair. I don't think it's a secret to say it goes down. Is that the same with TfL, or is that you kind of?
Well, it can be impacted by little spikes of things that have happened. Sometimes not things that have happened in our organisation. I mean, a strike on the national rail network, for example, does impact how people feel about TfL, even if it's it's not happened in our organisation. I think sentiment's also been boosted a little by the pandemic, and the support people feel they've had from kind of frontline colleagues in our organisation who continue to provide a service, where we've been able to invest, fantastic new services, the Elizabeth line, for example, that does provide a boost. But reputations are volatile, and
and actually, you remind me that I've had meetings with you just before great events like the coronation and jubilees, and you are dealing with potential mayhem, aren't you? But yeah, no, I totally see that outside events must have a huge effect. What is your favorite film or book, and why is that your choice?
Well, I'm sorry, this is a choice that many people would make, but mine is The Shawshank Redemption, the film. And for anybody who's not seen it, it doesn't sound a very cheerful tale. It's somebody who served decades in prison for the murder of his wife, a crime that he didn't commit. The reason I love it, I've seen this film so many times, but it's just such a powerful story of positivity, one man's resilience, and in the end, of course, justice prevailed, and the good guy got his justice, and the bad guys got what was coming to them. It's just such a powerful story.
It is beautiful, isn't it? And I realized I'd so many people had told me about it that I sort of assumed I'd seen it, but I hadn't. And I went back and watched it not that long ago and thought, wow, it's so powerful. Yeah, lovely choice. So if you hadn't ended up in transport and customer service, what might you have done with your life, Nick, if you'd have gone on some other path entirely? Was it obvious where else you might have gone?
Well, I dabble with a few things. I mean, the one other job in transport I really wanted when I was growing up was to be a pilot, an airline pilot. My indifference towards maths and physics at school soon told me that was not a good idea. I was very interested in retail, but the where I'd land actually is probably with my heart. I love the outdoors. I love the mountains. I grew up in North Yorkshire, but spent a lot of time in the Lake District. So something connected with that, perhaps the National Trust. I love our national parks as well. So something in that would have, that would have kept me very happy in a career.
Nick, I realize how busy you are and that you're always dealing with something. So I'm extremely grateful that you gave up the time today to take part with us. Thank you so much for joining us today. Brilliant.
Great speaking to you. Thank you.